Hello everyone, starting with another fascinating story from today. The straw Moonie is being pulled out from the propaganda bag again. This time some former members of the Unification Church who became deprogrammers are being hired by the court to deprogram Trump supporters. I'm very fascinated by these stories because I'm well aware of the efforts of Marxists to infiltrate religious movements and change them from within, dominate them from within, report on them from within, for like authorities to act against them. So for me to see people who openly come out now to say that they're former members, they're extremely militantly anti-religious, and to make open claims like this, it's actually very fascinating. Now, this is the story from today. Ex-Moonie hired to deprogram January 6 defendants of their devotion to Trump. So, like, these are political activists who are extremely anti-religious, who have been planted, maybe not, into the Unification Church to investigate it from within. Then they have left the church. They have stories of how this happened, the drama about it, but they've created a career out of this, anti-cult career, which does not target the Marxist Atheist Cult, but is used to target only religious organizations. And the real cults, personality cults of the Marxist socialist movement, are never being addressed and never being considered a threat of any kind, despite their mass murdering history, despite their open anti-American rhetoric and anti-European rhetoric. I was very surprised when similar kind of anti-religious sentiments in Europe demanded the change of the European anthem. I don't even know if anyone remembers, but anti-religious zealots and atheists, they demanded that the European anthem, the original text of the European anthem, be changed because they were offended by the mentions of God. So instead of inclusion and diversity, they chose hate and bigotry. And now in this case, it's really interesting how Diane Benscoter, this is the lady in question, she built a career of fighting cults. She's a former member of the Unification Church, apparently. We have no idea what the true story is. We can only speculate, but the only thing we know now is that the fact of her being a Moonie, a member of the Unification Church, has become a very successful career as an anti-cult expert. So she's considered an anti-cult expert, whatever that means. But she doesn't investigate the Marxist atheist movement. And she's being employed now because it's being considered that only religious movements can be cults, according to her, apparently. Like, I really find it fascinating because I was raised in a Marxist atheist cult, religiously being indoctrinated by it. And this is admitted by many Marxist scholars in the West, that this is the case of the communist bloc. But this fact is being entirely neglected by cult experts. Like, I would really challenge Miss Diane Bescotter and all other European and American cult experts to present their studies on the Marxist Atheist Cult and comparative analysis on how Marxist atheism was indoctrinated and is being indoctrinated now in schools in Western Europe and America, and its negative influence on youth as well, if there are any negative influences on youth. Because I was religiously indoctrinated as an anti-religious hater of religions, very similar to her sentiments, to see only the evil in religions. And then I met Muslim people in a Muslim country who didn't fit this imaginary religious straw man criteria. Then I was in Ethiopia and I met Orthodox Christians, very devout missionaries and pastors, and generally a very Orthodox country. And I didn't meet many evil people. They hated white people because, they had the Russians especially, because when I was there, that was their most recent memory of white people stealing from them and destroying the country. They hated the Russians, and as a default, because I was a white person, they hated me, thinking I was a Russian, and kind of unleashing their hate against me because of what the damage that Russia had caused to Ethiopia at that time through the communist regime in the nation. But other than this, like when you look at their tradition and lifestyle and, the aspirations of and the simplicity of life of religions and religious people, it's, I don't see that measure of judgment that these anti-cult experts see. And I don't understand their double standards as well. To me, it looks like they're hired as hit people. Maybe they're even planted, I don't know. I know that in the communist countries, the Communist Party was planting agents in the churches, and now in the Bulgarian Orthodox Church, recently, a few years ago, came information that about 8 of the members of the Holy Synod of the Orthodox Church were planted members of the secret services, state secret services. So this is a common practice. This is not something that is out of the ordinary. And now to see them kind of being weaponized politically, like, because this is an obvious case of political weaponization of anti-religious hate against the political opponent. Like, this is so weird. And to intermingle into this story the Unification Church and former Unification Church members, and without kind of really going through what the Unification Church is about, what were the motivations of the founder, completely ignoring everything, his life, his family's life, and the achievements of this man over his 92-year life, starting off as a relatively poor person in North Korea in a very, very difficult time for the country, and abandoning his family and going off to do studies and missionary work, being arrested many times for this by the communists, and then establishing successful businesses in a global organization, in his mind, an organization that is supposed to solve many world problems. And I personally, because I'm a witness of this, I've been researching this for many years, I personally don't see a difference between what other organizations are doing and what the Unification Church and Reverend Moon and his wife are doing and are still doing. following the legacy. He passed away a few years ago, but following his legacy, his wife continues, and the international organizations that he created continue their efforts for world peace and creating bridges and opening places for dialogue for religious people, for politicians, for intellectuals. So it's just mind-blowing how narrow-minded this anti-cult, religious haters, or I don't understand. Like, for me, it's so narrow-minded and so limited in perspective and so uneducated, the statements they make, so poorly researched. At least, like, we can say maybe, okay, even uneducated, because if they wanted, they could educate themselves. They could sound different, but they refuse to. And they would just plainly, like, misrepresent everything about the Unification Church based on their personal experience, based on their hate, which we don't know if it's really what the reason is. Because, as I said, like, if people are planted in different churches and people are planted in Unification Church for propaganda reasons, and they're being used for propaganda reasons, we don't know what's going on really. But one thing is clear: this is obviously a hate crime, because it is obviously anti-religious. It is against the law to hate religions openly and to talk about them openly. They completely disregard this on the basis of semi-truths, because a lot of, 99%, 99.9% of what could be said about the Unification Church and Reverend Moon is not being said in these stories. And yes, he tries to present a new worldview like many others. So why this is an absolute evil? Like, this is represented like as if Trump represents some absolute evil that needs to be eradicated from the minds of people. And Reverend Moon is presented like he represents some kind of absolute evil that needs to be eradicated from the minds of people, which is complete lunacy. It's like, if this is not a hate crime, I don't know what it is. What is a hate crime? It's absolutely one-sided and very, very narrow-minded perspective. And, media is being used to portray, to kind of portray this message and spread this message around. And, they're kind of attaching one person they feel bad about with another person they feel bad about, which have like very little in common, if anything, in common. Maybe the fact that Trump gave a speech at one of the events of the Unification Church, organized by the Unification Movement. But this was a public event. So, like, there is nothing wrong with participating in public events. And it was an event about sharing the goals of the organization for world peace and establishing global relations that can enable world peace. Many politicians have participated in events like this, including the chairman of the United Nations. But he is not being put in this category of people to be talked about. It's very, very strange the way this information is presented, to say the least.